Welcome to a very special show here by Dublin City Schools. I'm Jason Holcomb, Director of Public Relations, and I am joined today by our very special guest, Dr. Jamie Lowther. Dr. Lowther, it is a pleasure and an honor. And first and foremost, before we get anywhere into this conversation, I want to thank you, your wife, and everyone in the medical field right now for all the great work that you're doing to help promote safety, health, and wellness across our nation.
I'm honored that you would even ask me to come on.
Well, I'm going to tell you, anytime that I find out about one of our alums doing great things, I want to showcase that to our students in particular, to showcase to them that anything is possible with the Dublin City Schools education. And if you look over my shoulder, you can see I like to showcase that pride. That's our state championship team behind me. And I'm sure even from Alabama, you were pretty excited to hear that we brought home another trophy this past December.
Oh, absolutely. I was at the championship game, actually.
Oh, well, fantastic. Well, I wasn't looking, I was on the field freezing and slightly wet. I was standing beside the state school superintendent at one point and didn't recognize him for all the garb that he had on top. And he finally walked up to me and he said, "Hey, Jason, I'm so proud for y'all." And I went, "Superintendent Woods," like, "Hey." He said, "Yeah, I've been here. I wanted to make sure to be here for y'all's game because I really love y'all." And I'm like, "Okay, well, thank you."
It definitely was cold and rainy, but hey, it was fun. I was just glad to see my alma mater make it there and bring home the hardware.
Yes, 5th time in our school history, and then we can add that to all the other state titles we've accumulated. We've got a couple in softball, a couple in basketball, an assortment of individual track honors, wrestling, cheerleading. I love any time we can wear the hardware. In fact, I'm just so everybody can see.
Yes, sir.
In fact, my kids are outside. My wife teased. She said, "You trying to look like the boys?" I said, "Well, we feel good, so we're gonna rep it out. That's fine." But Doc, talk about your time. Let's go back a ways to your time at Dublin City Schools. And I'm trying not to talk about aunts and uncles because Coach Lowther was my 8th grade science teacher, and I work with Miss Marie right now. So I see lots of your family in different forms and fashion. And of course, like Miss Bobby, your aunt, Coach Lowther's wife, she's one of the sweetest people I know. So I know you're cut from good cloth. Talk about that time at Dublin for you when you were going to class, participating in athletics. What was it about your time at Dublin that helped to shape and mold you as a person?
Well, the one thing that I would, if I had to look back at my time, is that it was a well-rounded type of experience. It was diverse. I had a good mix of the arts. Can you see me? I think I lost.
Yes, sir.
Oh,
no, I'm still here. I told you we're gonna kick the Wayback Machine.
Yeah, you brought back some old pictures, huh?
Hey, you're number 5, correct?
I am number 5. That would be my junior year. Yeah.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go right ahead.
Oh, it's all good. Yeah. So what I would say is that it was a well-rounded education, from the arts to academics to athletics. I feel like I had a really good framework, really good foundation to move forward. So it was really, for me, it was a really good time there.
Now, if you look really hard at this picture, the thing that stands out to me most, and I don't know many people are going to pay attention to this. I don't know if I can zoom or not, if it'll let me zoom, but look at Coach Curbo's glasses. Look hard at those. He's got those round specs.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty funny. And I see a lot of other familiar faces. Go ahead and call out a few of those names. I'm seeing I see RT in particular, but who are some of the other people that we might find in this photo?
Let's see here. So bottom left, we got Dorico White. And next to him, you got Chad Blue. Next to him, you got Ryan Taylor, of course, that you mentioned before. Let's see. It's Regis Stanley next to him. I want to say that's Tim Ray next to him, and then Telly McCray. There on the
And look at Telly. I thought that was him. Ah.
Yeah, that's Telly McCray. And on the back row, you got all the seniors, basically. So you got Condi Johnson, Nakia Brown, Ryan Jackson, Tilden Wright. I'm next to Tilden, and then James Holder. And, of course, the coaches, you got Coach Kerbo, you got Coach Thomas, you got Coach Richardson, I believe.
Yeah, me and Coach Richardson.
Yeah, and Coach Lowther.
Now, talk about playing basketball for this bunch. What was that like? Because you've got a bunch of different coaching personalities there, in that whole situation. How did that help shape you different from, say, your teachers?
Well, like you said, there's a lot of different styles there, even within the same system. So my freshman and sophomore year actually played under Coach Hutto.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I played under Coach Hutto. And that was more of a systematic, share the ball, no first, second option type of deal going on. Everybody kind of equally, share the rock type of situation. And during that time, I also played JV. So I played a little JV and varsity, at the same time. So I was under Coach Thomas at that time. And, Coach Thomas, if I had to explain Coach Thomas.
Hey, you don't have to explain anything. He was my health teacher. I used to tease people all the time because I love Coach T. I said, Coach T, from a basketball mindset, is one of the more brilliant people if you will listen to him.
Brilliant.
But you have to listen to him. And sometimes when he gets to talking fast, because, he had a really bad fever when he was younger, and it actually impaired his speech. So he'd get to talking so fast that his mind was moving faster than his mouth. And he used to apologize. He said, if I sound like I'm stuttering or rambling, it's because I had a really bad fever. And I used to get so tickled because, he coached Ben Smith and Chris Wright in 2006 when they won the state championship. They had such a family relationship. They could be honest with each other to a fault. And I used to love that because Ben would straight call out Coach T. He'd say, I didn't understand a word you said. You're going to have to slow down. And Coach T would slow down. But, man, you put that guy with a piece of chalk in his hand and let him drop some plays. It was absolutely amazing.
Yeah. And my experience with him is, he kind of had a less is more type of approach with us. I actually played point guard for him. So it was a matter of, run the show, but if you kind of get out of hand, then I'll straighten you out type of thing. So, but it was really fun basketball playing with him. It was more of an offensive type of deal. Now, as far as switching gears over to Coach Kerbo, now he's more of a strict disciplinarian.
You can say he's mean. You can say that he's mean. I'll tell him I love him. He's mean. He was mean.
Yeah, he's definitely a disciplinarian. I'll put it that way.
He was my health teacher first semester in 9th grade year, and.
Okay.
Already when you're coming into high school, you're scared. Unless you're one of those crazy kids or super popular, famous kids, you come into 9th grade scared to death. And I was, coming in on that college prep focus, so I was already going to be taking some of the harder classes. I had Miss McCarn for English, and I had Coach Kerbo for health, and I had some of the meaner people, but they were good people. But Coach Kerbo scared me to death. And we're talking about health class in a trailer. and I was scared.
Mm-hmm.
But what was funny is, you know, he left us, went to Wilco, and then ended up at Bleckley for a while with Coach Bars.
Mm-hmm.
That was about the time I started covering sports for the paper. And we got to talking, and I said, Coach Curbo, I'm not going to lie to you. You were mean as fire when I was in high school. And he got to laughing real hard, and he goes, you know what? You were right. I said, well, why are you not mean now? He said, well, because my doctor says if I'm too mean, it's going to hurt my health. I said, really? It's going to take a heart attack for you to stop being mean? And he goes, well, I'm not mean anymore. And he's not. He's a wonderful person. I love me some Coach Curbo. So you helping me out too. But you look taller in your current photos than you do in these team pictures. You must have been up against some tall drinks of water here, because all these, and I've been around some of these guys. Like, did you keep growing after high school?
No, I actually stopped growing. I'm 6 foot even.
Wow. So I'm about 4 inches taller than you, but that's crazy.
Yeah.
I love looking at the.
I grew the other way.
hey, I'm 6'4" squared. You put that 2 by it, in both ways, length and width, and maybe even depth. So obviously this time that you spent at Dublin, both athletically and scholastically, helped mark you in such a way that prepared you for college. Talk about your college years. Where did you go to school, and was medicine always at the front, or was that something that came over time? Talk about that process of graduating high school, getting into college, and then how you ended up moving toward this direction of medicine.
Medicine was always a part of the picture. My mother, one of the few of her siblings that actually went the healthcare route, the rest of them went education in some form or fashion, was a registered nurse at Fairview. And
wow.
Yeah. She's one of the nursing supervisors out there. It always fascinated me. She'd come home and tell me some things that went on at the hospital. And so medicine has always been a fascination of mine. So the summer of '93, when I graduated, I did a kind of like an internship shadowing type thing with Dr. Bob Schumann. And,
oh, wow.
That was a great experience. Actually at that time I knew it was healthcare, but I was looking at pharmacy and I was looking at medicine. Okay. And it just seemed like the pharmaceutical route seemed more attainable. I didn't know any African-American physicians at the time. But after I did that summer with Dr. Schumann, it really kind of ignited my fire to go more towards the medicine. And so I enrolled I had an academic scholarship at Morehouse College in Atlanta. So that's where I did my undergrad.
Wow.
And
wow.
And it was on from there.
Now, what about through medical school? Where did you get to go to medical school? How did all that?
Went to medical school at Meharry Medical College in Nashville, and did my residency training at UAB in Birmingham. Yeah,
so is that how you ended up transitioning into Alabama, into enemy territory?
Man, I was following a little lady to Alabama.
Hey, I don't blame you.
Yeah, I met my wife in med school. She's a physician as well. We both have a practice here in Tuscaloosa, which is where I am now. And we met in med school. She's from Birmingham, and so she was a class ahead of me. So when she graduated, she took her residency down at Birmingham at UAB, and I followed, and we since moved down to Tuscaloosa, and that's where we've been.
Well, I want to tell you something. you have an absolutely beautiful family. I don't know if you can see them up on the screen, but if you could go ahead and name everybody off so everybody here in Dublin can get to know if they don't already know, but this is a good looking group.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So in the picture that you have, so of course that's me and my wife, Keisha. And if you're looking from right to left, my son with the dark pink shirt on, that's Jeremiah. He's a sophomore.
Oh my gosh.
High school now. So that's an older picture. But, but yeah, he's a sophomore. And then his twin brother and sisters. So he has so we have twins.
Wow.
Yeah. So my daughter Adia and then my son Evan. And they're both 13 and they're in the 8th grade.
That is amazing.
Right.
Well, you know, you told me to go on your Instagram, and so I did. So people cannot go walking around saying, man, that joker, he snoops all over everybody's page. I'm about to set mine to private. I don't want that man getting all on my business. So I did this legally and above board.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now that I think about it, I told you to go get the older ones from there, but I don't think I've updated my Instagram lately. So that's a very old.
Obviously not. I mean, that or Jeremiah's an awfully short sophomore. I mean, I'm not hating on short people because my mother-in-law is 4'11", so I'm not. You know, I love short people. I love tall people. I got a mix of both in my crowd, but I'm just saying, you know. Yeah, you might want to throw a few pictures up there once in a while to let people know that your children aren't stunting their growth, not eating enough vegetables or something.
Well, you can probably get a more recent one on my Facebook page.
And I'm going to tell you the thing that I've got before we get too deep talking some more about some of these other things, I do want to throw up a couple other pictures for you when we were talking about sharing some stuff. I found this one too. That's a similar picture to one from earlier, but right. It looks like it's. So you said that's junior year?
That's my junior year. That's a special group. That was the team that. We took like a 13 to 14 year hiatus from state play, and that was the team that brought us back to that level of contention. If you can, I don't know how far your memory goes back then. You know, we couldn't get over the hump of beating Dodge County, so this team beat Dodge County twice.
Wow.
Yeah. So let me see if I can name these guys. So you got Paul Conyers.
Yep.
Yeah. So you got Albert Evans. That's Donut's uncle.
Ah.
Yeah. There's Keith Isaac next to him. That's Ryan Jackson, Tilden Wright, Nakia Brown. That's me again. That's James Holder, Connie Johnson, and in the front is Julius King.
You talk about getting to the state playoffs, and are those, what kind of shoes are those? Those almost look like pumps.
Those were the Reebok pumps, the D-Brown pumps, yes.
Boston Celtics D Brown pumps, man. You know, I'm gonna tell you, I bet some of these kids don't even know what we're talking about, or how foolish we were to sit there and squeeze a basketball on the tongue to make it firmer. You know, what do you mean you're gonna put air in your shoe?
That was a big thing, man. To pump that basketball on the front before the game. You know,
man,
use that on intimidation.
but you didn't want to pop them. Because, you know, I had friends that messed around and popped theirs. I remember I had one kid, his name was Bobby. I lived in California until the early 90s. And Bobby, his grandma used to buy him all the shoes. He was the first one to have BKs. For those of you who don't know, those are British Knights. And those were like $150, $200 shoes. And he was the first one with pumps. He was the first one with Jordans. And I remember when he had his pumps, we got ready to do something. He was trying to be cute. And, you know, in the commercial, D bends over and gets it all ready to go.
Yeah.
Bobby went pop. I went, uh-oh. And he, God bless him, he ruined some shoes. You know, remember how they used to put the little gel on the back of the shoe?
Yeah.
You know, you'd see the little gel, and it's supposed to help you whenever you're jumping up and down. Well, he'd get tired of them. He'd dig the gel out just to ruin a pair of shoes. I'm like, Bobby, you don't have sense, son. If my first pair of Nikes, I had to pay for myself. You know, I didn't have no grandma buying me shoes. I had to save $45 and go to the outlet store. I didn't have, you know, cash money just flowing like milk and honey.
Tell me about it.
And I found this picture too. And
right. So that was Summer League. That was the first year they introduced Summer League at Oconee.
I knew it was Oconee. You can tell by the windows.
Yes, yes. And, you know, GHSA rules, you know, we couldn't all play on the same team. So they just kind of broke up the team, and we all had our own little chances to go against each other.
Now with AAU, there's all kinds of you can do all kinds of unique stuff. Yeah. I saw this one too.
Yeah, the Three Amigos. That's me, Condy, and Ryan again. That's homecoming court.
And the old Shamrock Bowl, I don't think a lot of people remember what Shamrock Bowl looked like before the field house was constructed. Or the fact that there were urinal troughs up there at the top at the ticket booth. You know, that's, you know, some things are worth keeping and some things you just need to let go. And I'm thankful that we no longer have urinal troughs at the Shamrock Bowl. I'm glad we've advanced beyond.
I agree.
Well, we've talked about nostalgia and we've talked about your family some, but I wanted to go ahead and talk a little bit about what you're currently doing, you know, both you and your wife, you know, talking with John Strickland, our director of transportation, coach extraordinaire and overall Dublin supporter. I'm not sure if he was coaching the girls' side yet whenever you were in school, or if that came afterward. I'm trying, because I know he worked at Trutland for a little while and then he came back to us, and of course he never left after that. But talk about what you're currently doing in the medical field and how that's impacting your community in and around Alabama.
Okay. As I mentioned before, my wife and I, we have an office here, private practice, primary care practice that ranges from pediatrics to geriatrics. So as far as outpatient, we're covering all those needs from an outpatient perspective, but I also serve as a hospitalist. And in particularly, two of the floors that I man are actually COVID wards or COVID overflow wards. Yeah, so.
Which hospital?
Druid City Hospital in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Yeah, we only have one hospital. It's actually two hospitals under the same system. But yeah, it's definitely it's a rewarding experience, but it's also an intimidating experience. This is, you know, something, you know, like we've never seen before. So of course, you know, there's data evolving every day, treatment guidelines evolving from week to week. So it's definitely keeping me on my toes.
Well, talk about, you know, we don't want to spend a ton of time necessarily because obviously people are getting enough of that in other places, but being that you're being around this disease and having to treat it in different ways, what would be your best advice to people in Dublin and Lawrence County to help us move beyond this current shelter-in-place situation? What will it take from your medical expertise, in your opinion? What are the things that we can be doing individually and collectively to make your life easier or less stressful and more impactful?
The one thing I would say is definitely be adherent and obedient to the shelter in place order. It helps a lot. I know we hear the cliche, things of flattening the curve and things of that such. I mean, it's absolutely a true phenomenon. And that's more so to help stop the rate of spread, the speed of spread, and also to help us out as physicians, as that curve steepens, we begin to run out of resources. and we want to be able to have the capacity to meet the needs medically of our citizens. So it would be really great if we could have everybody adherent to those shelter-in-place rules, also to those curfew rules. As far as individual health, the biggest thing I would say is and this sounds cliche too, but is to try to employ a more healthier lifestyle, which includes changes in diet, changes in sleep. And I know everybody's saying that the gyms are closed, but there's some things that we can do around the house to help get you moving and get blood flowing and circulating and controlling those other underlying conditions, which seem to be more of the complicating factor of this illness.
Well, it's funny you say that, because before you and I got together to talk, I ran a portion of 4.1 miles. I can't say that I was running the entire time, but I was running a majority, 75 to 80% of that 4.1 miles I was jogging. And that's something that I think is true for everyone. Before I got married, I went to the gym every day. And because of my work schedule covering sports for the newspaper, I actually had a window in the middle of the day of 3 to 4 hours where I had nothing else better to do. And so I would exercise for 3 to 4 hours every day. When I got married, obviously, as you well know, when you get married, your schedule changes, and it's not knocking the change. It's just a reality of taking on that responsibility and making that promise to another person. So right. I had to modify my lifestyle. And so, I started exercising at home, and I've been doing that since, 2008, and, doing little weights here and there, running, doing sprints, just being outside and getting fresh air. I have 8 children, so I can't say that I get as much sleep as I should. And one of those is a newborn. Actually, was born 4 weeks ago tomorrow. We were in the hospital just as the first 2 cases were announced in Lawrence County. Wow. And of course, everybody and their grandma, when we had little Lydia, sat there asking, "Well, you going to name her COVID?" And I'm like, no, we're not going to name her Corona. We're not going to name her COVID. We're not going to name her Pandemic. We're not going to, her name's Lydia. We already had that picked out. But Dr. Lowther, I just want to tell you again how much I've appreciated you taking time out of your busy schedule to come and speak to us today, and particularly being able to speak to the children and giving them some advice and some input as to how they could do like you did. You talked about when you got into the field of medicine just before then in school, that if you hadn't run into somebody like Dr. Schumann who poured into you, you may not be in the medical field. So talk about what you would like to say to these young people as they prepare to consider the different career paths that may intrigue them moving forward.
Yes. Dublin High offers a rich foundation for academic success and excellence. I would say if anything, to work hard, to invest in yourself, and to take the time and actually utilize the resources that are there at Dublin. There are a number of different resources from your teachers, from community businessmen, businesswomen that are in all areas of different career paths. And I would say to utilize those resources. As you alluded to before, I mean, that internship meant a whole lot in my development. And you know, so I would say to definitely keep God first, to keep working hard, and to keep and build those relationships and utilize those resources.
Well, thank you again, Doc. It's been a pleasure. I want to wish you safety and protection over you and your wife and your whole family as we go through this. We're going to get out of it just fine. I trust in God that He's got a plan behind all of this. And my hope is to you that when we get on the other side of this, that we can run into each other at Brian's Subs or any of the little places here in town that I know you have to entertain when you're in town, because there's certain places you just have to eat when you come here.
Oh yeah, company supply is one.
Oh yes, Rich Mascaro. I'm gonna tell you that that place will hurt you if you're not careful.
It will. And we can't talk about we can't leave without talking about Friendly Gus's potato logs.
That endorsement just made Guy Cochran's happy list. I'm sure if he sees this video, which he doesn't do social media, so somebody have to bring him a phone and show him, but that Friendly Gus endorsement will, the fresh chicken fingers and tater logs are hard to beat from the Friendly Gus.
That's true. Now, as a physician, you got me reneging on some of my previous statements about eating healthy. Because
moderation.
I was about to say, because now I'm thinking about Paula's fried chicken. Well, anyway, it was a pleasure coming on here today. Again, I'm honored, I'm flattered that you would even ask. Want to, brief shout out to class of 1993 at Dublin High School. And thanks again.
Thank you. Have a great day.